Oh my goodness. I'm doing the amount of work that was laid out in my job description and in the employment contract that I signed. And oh crap! I'm doing the amount of work that me and my manager agreed upon in last week's sync. And uh-oh, I'm not responding to Slacks after 5 p.m. And it gets even worse. I'm not looking at my emails after 5 p.m. or on the weekends. I clearly must be quitting, is what apparently this whole thing is about right now, this quiet quitting mentality. There is definitely within our culture the idea of going above and beyond at work to kind of, show off, make sure that you're showing that you're bringing value for your next raise, bringing value for the next promotion that you want. And that kind of makes sense, but one thing we've definitely been lacking in the overall culture in the United States is the work-life balance, and we've definitely heard complaints about that even in the descriptions here. And by descriptions, I mean comments, of course, but yeah. But there's actually a nuanced conversation here that I don't think a lot of people are talking about in the articles that are being written this past week on quiet quitting and on the TikToks that have been blowing up for quiet quitting as well. Just like any conversation, there's honestly two sides that kind of make sense. I definitely understand the employer's perspective, and I definitely understand the worker's perspective, as I've been on both sides of the coin. As an employer, obviously you want employees that are going above and beyond and not having to micromanage their every move necessarily. And I'll definitely talk about that more when it comes to leadership principles here in a bit, but I can understand it. And on the worker side, I definitely understand wanting to clock out at 5 p.m. and not have to think about work and the drama at work and the workload for tomorrow and what goals there are next quarter when you're just trying to enjoy a nice dinner. And especially when it comes to working from home, where all communication is done via something like Slack or Microsoft Teams, a lot of that stuff really bleeds into after work hours, and people are just getting attached and stressed out of their work continuing into their night. But one thing I have a problem with is the term overall. I think it gives a really bad name to what it actually is. Clearly, these are not people that are just quitting or slacking on their job in order to, get a paycheck and not do work. Those people should either quit or get fired promptly. But quiet quitting in this context means these people are just doing the work that has been laid out in front of them and meeting their goals 100%, but they're not doing the extra stuff that, would impress a manager or would be competitive against two workers who might want to get a promotion if one ever comes up in a year or two. And it also means creating that work-life separation where at 5 p.m., if that's when your company decides the office closes, you're done for the day. No more work. No more thinking about work of that day. No more thinking about the work of tomorrow. No more thinking of the office drama. No more thinking about your manager's opinion of you, of which, of course, a Gallup poll found just a few months ago that 24% of Americans think that managers don't have their best interests at heart, and that's not a good sign. I've worked for a couple companies during the pandemic era where we're working from home, and the messages just continue to flow and the emails just continue to flow late into the night, and you can never separate. You can never have your life outside of work. And then even if it's saying, there's no pressure to respond to this, just wait until the morning. Well, if it's coming from one of your superiors, there definitely is pressure to respond to you. There's that authoritative understanding that you want to impress them, you want to be on their good side and their good graces. So again, quiet quitting comes down to just doing your job. Not less, not more. Doing your job during office hours, and no more, no less. You're doing it well. You're doing it at 100%, not 125%, not 75%. And that sounds pretty reasonable, I think, to the majority of people. Now, on the other side of this, what they're definitely missing is when a promotion comes down the road, if you think of the manager's perspective, if you think of the employer's perspective, who are they going to pick? They're probably going to pick the person that they've seen be most driven and do things that are extra, not in their job description. Showing ambition, showing that they want to contribute value to the company. They're probably going to pick that person, which means if you are picking in our culture this quiet quitting where you're just doing your job, you're probably going to get passed up for that promotion. And that's not necessarily unfair. The employer wants to put the best person in that position, and if there's someone showing that they are the best person, obviously they will be picked. Of course, I don't think this means that people shouldn't at least get cost of living raises. We got to keep up with inflation, especially right now. But that's if they are doing their job well, 100%, not less. Now, this is kind of where I think managers and employers kind of fail when it comes to overall leadership. If you actually want your employees to be doing these extra things that are above and beyond, communicate it with them. Make it a part of the job description. Make it a part of the employment contract. If they are doing the job that was assigned to them and you want them to do extra stuff, give them a pay raise, give them a promotion, and say these are your new duties. Just sitting there and always expecting people to go above and beyond, that's not good leadership. That's not a good way to run a company. But again, from the leader's perspective, if you do see someone going above and beyond, it definitely makes sense to be picking them versus the person who is just doing their job and then going home. But we've definitely kind of failed when it comes down to this company's a family, and then people end up treating their company like a cult and they can't leave it. They need to stick there even if they're getting under market rate in order to get a job that actually pays their value. And people really just get sucked in American culture into the workplace, needing to kind of slave away. That's a bad word for it. No, not that. But people in our culture, they feel like they just need to keep working and working for a company that's undervaluing them. Why would they be going above and beyond? So you need to think about it from both perspectives. If you want someone to go above and beyond, lay it out, be a good leader, and also compensate them for what that is, or else they will go find another job in this workers' economy. And that's a very important point. If there was ever a time in the workers' economy to do this, it would be now. Though we're seeing the tech sector take a little bit of a retreat, and same with the construction sector, service industries, restaurants, and most every other industry is still incredibly strong and desperate to hire as many workers to fill all these open positions. So it makes sense. If you're a worker who feels like you're being overworked at your job and you want to separate when the workday ends, now is a good time to do it because it's hard to fill positions if they were to let you go. But on the other side of it, in a normal workers' economy, or especially if we head into a deep recession and the workers' economy essentially ends, it makes sense from the employer's perspective to let go the least performing person. And if that person is someone who's only doing the bare minimum, or just 100% instead of 110% when everyone else is doing 110% on their team, it makes sense to let that person go and find someone who would fit the culture of going above and beyond. And employers are not wrong for doing that. They obviously want to have the best people in each position. And if they can find someone who is going to do more work for the same amount of pay, if not even less, then of course the employer is going to do that. But again, I don't think we're in that place today because the workers' economy is incredibly strong. So what it comes down to from the employee perspective is analyzing their priorities. What do they want to see in their day-to-day lives? If a job is too demanding for them and they agreed with their manager that that's the job they're going to do, then it would make sense for them to go find a job that's more fulfilling to them. But on the other hand, if the job that they agreed to is just, considered the bare minimum and they must go beyond that, then it makes sense to participate in this new quiet quitting, especially in the workers' economy. So what are the priorities on an individual basis? Work-life balance is very important, but oftentimes for young people right out of college, kind of getting into the grind where you don't have a family, you're really just trying to get your career started, it makes sense to go above and beyond. That's not a bad thing either. But of course, those who have a family, they really do want to separate after work hours and be able to spend time with their family. And everyone wants to spend time with their friends. I want to spend time with my dog, and I want to spend time, creating extra content, like this special Sunday upload. And from the employer's perspective, you need to really share your needs. What do you need from each employee? What is their day-to-day responsibilities? What are the goals they are supposed to hit at the end of the week, at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter? And if they are not hitting those needs, then they're not quiet quitting, they are underperforming, and it makes sense to have a tough conversation with them or let them go and bring in someone who will fulfill those needs. But it is bad leadership if you're expecting someone to go above and beyond and considering when they do not that they're underperforming, because that's not how it works. They're doing the job that you agreed to. There needs to be a healthy balance. That's important. That leads to better work among employees. Just within my own experiences in my professional life before I was able to do YouTube full-time, I saw some of the best workers I've ever seen be driven way too far to work 50, 60, 70 hours a week. It drained them, it led them to burnout, and then they had poor performance, which was like working 20 hours a week even though they were working way more. That is counterproductive from a leadership standpoint. You want your people to be at peak performance, and that means a good, healthy work-life balance. If people don't have time to rest, if people don't have time to enjoy their social life, they are not going to be able to perform at their peak. So I definitely understand both sides from the employer's perspective and from the employee's perspective, as I've ran a small team in my corporate days and I run a small team now for the YouTube stuff, and I've been an employee for, many, many years. So really what it probably just comes down to is everyone being adult and just communicating. This is the work I want you to do. This is the work that I'm doing, and I might be overworked because there's just too much on my plate right now, and can we scale it back and reevaluate what my role looks like? No, we can't because we need to get this done in order to do this. Or yes, we can because you're a valued member of the company and maybe we can bring in someone else from another team to help. Conversations. I understand from the employee's perspective, it might be a little intimidating to start these conversations, so it actually probably comes from the leadership side. Whether or not this conversation will amount to anything over the past week, we'll see. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments below, and I'll try to respond to as many as I can, so let's keep the conversation going there. If you enjoy this kind of content and everything else I make, give this video a like so that YouTube recommends it to more people, and subscribe and stick around for more. Thanks.